where we give you a very expensive take for a cheap price in all of sports. And folks, I would love to go first here. Let me make sure y'all like and subscribe to the channel, okay? Please do. It's very imperative that you do because you will get the notifications coming your way. Anyway, my take for 99 is that Brandon Aiyuk, I want to do something that Zach has done plenty of times on the show, and Zay took a page out of Zach's book before. I want to do the same thing here, and I want to go back to a topic we already discussed. Brandon Aiyuk turning down the Patriots, okay, emphasizes the mistake that the Patriots made by not drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay, folks, we're going to talk today. Okay, we're going to talk because another wide receiver said no to the Pats. Another one. Okay, don't forget Calvin Ridley this offseason said, you know what, I'm going to take less and I'm going to go to Tennessee because that's a 10 I see. Okay, New England, I see a 0. Okay, I'm going to take less to join, Mr. What's the quarterback name? Will Levis. Okay, and when you look at the Patriots history, of wide receivers, we're going to touch on that in a minute. But Brandon Aiyuk, let's make one thing clear. He did not want to play for the Pats. The reason why the Pats rescinded their trade proposal was because they knew he wasn't coming here. Okay, it's like me sending an Instagram model a DM and she leaves it on scene and I unsend it. No, you didn't deny me or reject me. I rescinded it. I rescinded the DM. That's what happened with Brandon Aiyuk, okay? They rescinded the trade proposal because he knew he wasn't going there. All right? And look, folks, Tom Brady is not walking through that door anymore. He's retired. Okay, he's done. Nobody's taking a pay cut to play in New England. Tom Brady is not there. Okay? Now that's why you got to draft a stud. That's why you use the draft to get that guy. And Marvin Harrison was there to be taken. But you went with Drake May. Folks, I'm gonna talk about this for a second because I get why they drafted Drake May. I understand that. I understand the value of having a quarterback, especially on his rookie deal. But let me bring up this stat, okay? Since 1998, 36 quarterbacks have been drafted in the top 5. Only Peyton Manning and Eli, by the way, they brothers, ironically, won Super Bowls with that team that drafted them that high. Out of 36 quarterbacks drafted in the top 5, only Eli and Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl. So what does that tell me? That you can have a talented guy, but if you don't have the infrastructure to build around that guy, the team to build around that guy, it means nada. The Patriots, look at their weapons right now. Kendrick Bourne, that's their ultimatum. Juju is doo-doo. Okay? Respectfully. Where is the talent here? So you mean to tell me Drake May is the best quarterback of all time? That when he gets the job eventually, whether it's this year or next year, he's going to lead the Patriots to the daggone Super Bowl? Cut it out. That's why you should have drafted Marvin Harrison. Okay? Because when you look past this year, what has been the kryptonite of the New England Patriots? Wide receiver. Okay? When you look at wide receivers, even when they had Brady, they couldn't even draft them properly. From 2003 to 2016, when I graduated high school, the Patriots drafted 7 wide receivers in the first 4 rounds. 0 finished their rookie contracts, bruh. And the one that did was N'Keal Harry. You remember that name, Mr. Belichick? Which was the reason why Tom Brady walked out the door. Okay? Come on, folks. They should have drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. and nobody can convince me otherwise. And Brandon Aiyuk was a prime example of why. And that's my take for 99.
So I'll say this. I agree with the premise of the take. I do not think they should have drafted a quarterback. And speaking of Juju, I'm even hearing he might get cut. That's how South thinks things have gone with him since leaving Pittsburgh. But I just love, first of all, maybe this is just my Jet fandom coming out, but after all of the years of guys taking less to go to New England, play with Brady, play with Belichick, it is hilarious to me that a guy in Brandon Aiyuk literally turned down the most money not to go to the Patriots. That's how bad.
I thought it was about money, bro. Oh no, I'm not going to New England.
Yeah, and even Leel, you remember I don't know if you heard this, but I think Robert Kraft was asked about Calvin Ridley and like why he didn't sign, and he was like, "Oh, his girlfriend didn't want to go to New England." I found that funny, but I would have personally traded back and just collected as many assets as possible, because even if you would have drafted Harrison, you wouldn't have a quarterback to throw him the ball, which wouldn't be ideal. So I just think Belichick left the cupboard so bare that this team just needed as many assets as possible. And personally, I would have traded back. But I was heavily considering talking about the Patriots for my take for 99 after the Aiyuk news, and even there's been some controversy with Matthew Judon. He apparently got kicked out of practice, having a screaming match with Gerard Mayo. Even there have been reports that Drake May has not looked particularly great in training camp so far. I'm looking forward to watching him tomorrow night in the preseason. I even heard that Joe Milton, the 7th-round pick, who anyone who's watched him in college knows that this guy has an absolute hose of an arm, maybe one of the best arms in the NFL right now. But
I mean, that's my point. Literally, you got a guy in Joe Milton. Yeah, we got to see him on the field in the preseason, but the reports are he's that dude. Second year, right?
He was drafted in the 7th round.
He was exact. All right, even better. You found that guy in the 7th round. You could have took Marvin Harrison Jr., Tom Brady. He was drafted late. Okay, Brock Purdy. He was the last pick of the draft. You can find the gem. If there's a generational talent available to you and it's a position of need, you take that guy and you figure out the quarterback on the fly, because they're all gems.
Yeah, my thing with Joe Milton is, like, he's a great practice player, but if you watched him in game, you kind of know. Like, I don't really think he has that much of an NFL future. I think there's a reason why he was drafted in the 7th round, but the reason why I brought him up was because the reports have been saying that he's been outplaying May in training camp, which is a huge concern. It's looking like Brissett is going to start, which he should, but again, like, I think there are some Patriot fans that expected May to see the field pretty early, and he still might, but I just don't think that would be an ideal situation given what's around him. And I'm not trying to open up Pandora's box here, but I just have a question about the Patriots that I haven't heard anyone, especially their fans, address, that I'm trying to figure out. It's clear that Robert Kraft scapegoated Bill Belichick for just about everything, and he basically blamed everything on him based on what's happened the last few years since Tom Brady left. And I understand why. Like, Belichick was really the driving force that kicked Brady out. But I just don't understand. If you had so much hate and so much animosity towards Belichick, then why did you hire someone from his tree? A guy that he brought in Gerard Mayo, that he groomed, like, especially given the history of Belichick assistants moving on to their next job. Like, I just didn't understand that logic. Why, if you were trying to get rid of Belichick and everything he did, why are you hiring someone from his coaching staff? But that'll be a question answered another day. I'm pretty down on the Patriots right now. I think there's a good chance they will be picking number 1 in next year's draft. And, well, I agree with the premise of your take that they should not have drafted a quarterback, because Drake May is not set up in a position to succeed right now. Zay?
I agree with both of y'all in both those takes. With the Patriots, there's a transition period. I think that they're still trying to get away from the old regime, and they're trying to figure out what's next to happen. And I don't think trading assets and taking on major contracts when their quarterback situation is not even set in stone. We don't know what's going to happen with Judon, that's his last name, the defensive player, because he wants to get paid as well, and he's a big part of what that Patriots defense is. And they don't want to cap themselves and put themselves in a situation where they have Brandon Aiyuk, or not in general, not even Brandon Aiyuk, but just in general, just having certain guys, skill position players, and they don't even have their base of their foundation set, right? Even if they were to trade the world for Brandon Aiyuk and they sold them on a dream that they couldn't even fulfill, and they got him to come over to the New England Patriots, what was next? The next 4 or 5 years, you're banking on Drake May being a quarterback for this franchise for the future. You're banking on hopefully Ramondre Stevenson being somewhat of what he was before. You're banking on a lot of different factors that don't exist, and it's a risk. And I think even going after Brandon Aiyuk was a risk, because it's like your quarterback situation isn't set in stone. You don't know what Drake May is going to be or isn't going to be. You don't really know if Judon is going to be back in that team this season because he wants to get paid. You don't know if Christian Gonzalez is going to come back the same form of who he was last year, right? It's a whole different system. It's a whole different scheme, or possibly. We don't know what Gerard Mayo is going to do and not do. So it's a lot of different things with that Patriots team where, like, they're trying to just shift the narrative and shift how they do things differently. And maybe that starts with this season. Maybe it starts with the season, next season, or year after. But, Belichick is gone. So they have to figure out a new way to get guys to come over to New England. You can't just live off of the Foxborough dream. Yeah, we have all these chips, we have all these historic players.
You got to draft those guys and develop those guys. You got to find, like we talk about Boston, you got to find your Tatum and your Jaylen Brown.
Right.
And Marvin Harrison is a caliber player like that to me.
And on that note, I just want to say quickly, they did draft a receiver who I like, Jalen Polk from Washington. I think he's going to be good, but
he is.
You need more,
Yeah, so I think that's what the upcoming seasons are going to be. Just drafting more offensive guys, because in past Patriots always draft defensive guys. They draft the underrated offensive players that wind up being big time marquee players for their offense, or even trade for or sign guys who underperformed in other places, and they come here and they wind up having career years for whatever the case may be. So I think that's just what the New England Patriots regime has been for decades, and now they're trying to fix decades of work into, all right, this is the new regime. We're bringing in young, fresh players. We're bringing in top prospects. We're bringing in, all these different top college players, and that's gonna take years to fix. It's not gonna be right away. So I think, in that regard, it's interesting. Like I'm kind of antsy to see what they try to do over there in New England. Zach, did you want to do your take right now? You want me to go?
Oh, sure, I'll go. I will stay in the NFL, harping off what Will said. Again, I was heavily considering using what I said about Gerard Mayo as my take for 99. Like, I don't know why the Patriots hired him if they were trying to move away from Belichick and everything he was doing, but that's a question for another day. I will stick with the NFL, and I don't know if you guys or anyone listening saw this last night, but Hard Knocks training camp with the Chicago Bears premiered last night. I watched the episode. I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was very well done. HBO does a great job. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of this season, and even the in-season edition with the entire AFC North. That will be really good. And also, I watched the Giants GM executive version over the course of the last couple of weeks. I thought that was great, and it's a great show. I highly recommend anyone who is interested. But the Bears, they are the featured team for Hard Knocks training camp, and really the main premise of the first episode last night was, of course, Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick in this past year's draft. We know the hype, we know the talent and everything that is expected of him, and it just made me realize, like, man, the Bears, I remember they made that pick with Carolina to get Caleb Williams to get that number 1 pick, but I just wanted to revisit it and what exactly they got, because we forget too, they got DJ Moore in that trade as well, who they just paid to a long-term extension. That was also part of the episode last night. So I was just looking back. The Chicago Bears got a 2024 first-round pick from Carolina, which turned into Caleb Williams. They also got a 2023 first-round pick from Carolina, which turned into Darnell Wright, their starting right tackle. They got a 2023 second-round pick in Tyreek Stevenson, the starting safety. And, of course, they got DJ Moore and a 5th-round pick, which turned into their starting punter, for Bryce Young. That was the pick that Carolina used. They took Bryce Young. So, at the end of the day, the trade was Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Darnell Wright, Torrey Taylor, who's looking like he's going to be their starting punter, Tyreek Stevenson, a starting safety, and a 2025 second-round pick for Bryce Young. I'm saying it right now, that's going to go down as the biggest fleece in the history of the NFL. And a trade that I think Carolina might not be able to recover from. And I know that we all know and realize just how bad of a trade it was from Carolina's perspective, but I don't think we talk enough about it. And when Caleb Williams develops into an elite, top-notch quarterback, I think it's going to be an even bigger talking point, because literally Carolina was a team that won 7 games 2 years ago. They hired an offensive coach in Frank Reich, who made that trade, by the way, because he wanted to draft CJ Stroud. And if they would have done that move, it would have been not a great trade for Carolina, but at least they have their franchise guy. But no, David Tepper stepped in and said, nope, we're taking Bryce Young, a guy that when I saw him walking into training camp the other day, I thought this guy was a middle schooler with that big-ass backpack. I like Bryce Young. I think Dave Canales is a good hire that will get more out of him, but I just have a hard time. Lil brought up that crazy stat about quarterbacks being drafted in the top 5 over the course of the last 25 years. Only 2 of them have won Super Bowls. I don't think Bryce Young is going to be added to that list. Caleb Williams might, but it is in large part because of that trade. Not only did they get Caleb Williams, a guy that's going to be a generational talent, I think, but they also got DJ Moore, who is one of the best receivers in the league. They got a starting right tackle in Darnell Wright that looked really promising last year. They got a safety in Tyreek Stevenson, who I think is really good. They also got their starting punter for Bryce Young, who I think could have a bounce back year, but I have a hard time seeing him, even with Dave Canales, even in an improved situation. Like, I just have a tough time seeing Bryce Young ever being an elite top 10 quarterback. I can't say the same about Caleb Williams. So I think my take for 99 is that trade, Bears-Panthers for Caleb Williams, that is going to go down as the biggest fleece in NFL history, considering the Bears got not only Caleb Williams, not only DJ Moore, but a starting right tackle in Darnell Wright as well.
I think real quickly, you have to understand that take and live it to believe it. Mm-hmm. I think it's a very good take. And I think, that is a fleece. Whether or not Caleb Williams become a star, like how some of us are predicting, right? Let me be clear here. This guy's a little bit too zesty for my liking. Okay, the pocketbooks, the nail thing, I'm just never going to get over that, right? But as long as you win, then I could respect you for winning. But if you don't win, I'm coming for that behind, bro. I'm going to light you up, Caleb. Okay, especially with that narrative you promoting, you better be good. But anyway, even if he's not good or not great, that's still a fleece. So it just only modifies that if he is. But you do have to look at one situation that really got the Bears in that position partially. A big part is that Texans game in which it was like 4th and something, and Davis Mills converted a long fourth down on a touchdown.
Multiple. It was like
it was multiple, right? And the Texans had no reasons to win that game, and then they win that game, and the Bears are the number one team, and then they got that Panthers deal after that. So I think that right there needs to be talked about more, because them idiots who won that game, look, they fine too, because they got
it worked out for them. Like, if they get the number one pick, they're taking Bryce Young.
Literally. So that did work out for them, but it worked out as well for the Bears. So that is the one example in which, at the time, like the Texans, what are you doing? You could argue that worked out for both of them, and this is where we are right now.
Thank Lovie Smith. He just won that game to throw a middle finger at the Texans because he knew he was getting fired, and turned out to be the best decision they ever made.
And he ended up getting fired without the job on the unemployment line, right? It's crazy. That's why you never do things out of spite, folks.
It's wild. It's wild. Now I'm kind of sticking here with Caleb Williams. My take for 99 cents is as a comparison from a different sport. I think Caleb Williams is closer to Markelle Fultz than we probably ever seen.
Oh my God.
And we talk about college stats. No. Talk about college stats. We talk about what he's done in college. Markelle Fultz averaged 24 a game in college. He averaged 6 rebounds, things of that nature. No one cared about winning. He wasn't winning in college, right? Same thing we talk about Caleb Williams. He wasn't winning in college. We didn't care about his ability to win or not in college, because we talk about how dynamic of a player he was, what he's able to do with a non-existent pocket, what he's able to do with players that weren't at his caliber on his team, and how he brings his teammates up. We talked about his passion on the field when he was crying on the sideline with his folks, and that's the guy we want on his team, the guy who has passion, the guy who's going to fight for his team, and all this other stuff. Rah. Fast forward, he gets drafted number 1. Fast forward, he has Keenan Allen. He drafted Rome Odunze on his team. You have DJ Moore as is. You have one of the strongest trios of receivers we've probably seen in the NFL in one particular time. All young, all typically in their prime, except for Keenan Allen. You can say he's a little bit on the older side. And we're talking about this kid, talking about he'll potentially be one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game, but he has the capability of doing so, not knowing that this is the first season, his rookie year. They have expectations to win. You have all those damn weapons on our offense. This is not a building year. This is not a rebuilding year. If they have a losing season, that's a detriment to the franchise. They put in a lot of capital to win this year. The focus and force the division to focus on them this year. A lot of people got the Bears winning the division this year. Not off of because the Lions or the Green Bay Packers are falling off. It's because you have 3 great receivers that people keep talking about over and over and over again on the Chicago Bears team. They talk about this quarterback being the best in the division, for crying out loud. They talk about this kid like he's so freaking great. Fantastic. So let's talk about the pressure it's going to take to win, because he's a rookie and we're expecting this team to go somewhere. If they don't make the playoffs, what are we going to say at the end of the season? He didn't have enough? They didn't get it done? He's a rookie, let him work through it? They're not going to say any of that. Like there's so much happening on his team that everyone's focused on his training camp. Everyone's focused on Caleb Williams, this, that, and the third, his personality, and that's great. So what about winning? How they have no one's talking about the pressure for the Bears to win something this year. Not a single soul is talking about how much pressure it is for them to make something happen in this division. Why not? They just spent big money on Keenan Allen. They gave DJ Moore a bag. They just drafted Roma Dunze. Who's the running back they just brought in?
DeAndre.
They got DeAndre Swift, who just had a big year on the Philadelphia Eagles. So how the hell? And then also they talk about they have a top 10 defense. So how the hell are they not being? There's no pressure. We're talking about like every other team in the world. We're talking about people talk about the Green Bay Packers falling off. I've said it. People said it. They talk about the Lions. They talk about San Fran. They talk about the Steelers. Oh, they're so middle of the pack, X, Y, and Z. But how the hell the Bears just get overlooked when they added the most on the team out of almost every team in the NFL? They added a lot of weapons. And what's happening? Nobody's talking about them having pressure to win because they drafted a quarterback at 1, the number 1 pick, and there's no pressure to win whatsoever. It's crazy to me. It's baffling. And the reason why I compare him to Markelle Fultz is because Markelle Fultz had the same thing. He came into the league. It was aloof. No one anticipated him or expected him to be great. No one expected him to take the Philadelphia 76ers at the time anywhere, to go places, to win games, to be the star player. It's just everyone overlooked him, despite him averaging 24 a game in college, despite him having crazy big games in college. Nobody cared about winning. So how the hell is it that if they win, oh, we all knew that Caleb Williams was that guy, but if they lose, oh, he's just a rookie. Don't expect much from him. That's annoying. That's terrible. And that's disgusting that as an NFL community, they're letting this slide. We have to give everyone the same due. He has to win. That's it. But that's why I compare him to Markelle Fultz, because of this situation.
You can't keep getting away with it. He can't keep getting away with it. He won't. I don't know, Zay, man. I mean, I like the take. The Markelle Fultz, you know, I'm going to tell you what Caleb Williams will remind me of if we want to compare him to an NBA player. It's funny because I actually thought about doing this take as well. We would have been all on the Caleb Williams train here today because that was definitely my runner-up. You know, he reminds me of Jalen Brunson for the Knicks. Hear me out. When you look at the Knicks point guards from 2010 prior to Jalen Brunson, you're talking about Raymond Felton, Frank Ntilikina, Tony Douglas, just to name a few, right? We had a point guard incompetence at the position. When you look at the Bears, quarterback incompetence, never had a 4,000-yard passer, Mitch Trubisky, Nick Foles, Justin Fields, right? They didn't get that position right. Now they go for Caleb Williams, like how we Knicks went for Jalen Brunson, and that move alone really transformed our franchise, along with Julius Randle as well. But that move right there brought us into new heights, and now we have that position secured, and now we are able to build around our point guard and produce a consistent contender, you know, in the Eastern Conference, and now a championship contender, that is. So I think with Caleb Williams and the Bears, now that they got that position right, that was lacking forever, you know, I think that could actually help them, you know, build a championship contender in the future. I'm not sipping this Kool-Aid about they winning the Super Bowl this year. I'm not going to go with that blasphemous, but I do think they do have an answer, and that's going to make them a team that can be contending like a Green Bay every single year because they have a quarterback. So I would compare him to Jalen Brunson to me personally.
Two things, right? The reason why I wouldn't use that comparison is because Jalen Brunson was like an underdog going into like the NBA, and like he had to.
I get that point. The underdog, and they're not as talented. Well, Jalen Brunson to me is talented, but he's not physically talented like a Caleb. But I'm not talking about just them individually. I'm talking about the scenarios, the situation.
I like the comparison because Caleb Williams, I've mentioned this on the show, he was the backup his freshman year, and then Oklahoma benched Spencer Rattler, and he came in, and that team took off. I like it. I think it's a great comparison.
That's fair points. And then two, the reason why I talk about him and Markelle Fultz, similar to the Bears, Philadelphia 76ers, they had Joel Embiid drafted in the first round. They had Nerlens Noel drafted in the first round. Jaleel Okafor, Markelle Fultz himself. They had Benjamin Simmons. They had all these plethora of first round picks all hoarded on this one team. They couldn't get it done, right? Everyone overlooks that. They just say, oh, they're young, they have to develop. But in this particular case, when we talk about other teams that have if you talk about any other team, let's talk about the Giants. Let's say if they had Allen, DJ Moore, Odunze, Swift in the backfield. We're talking about a team. We're expecting them to go somewhere, right? We're not expecting them, just to be better than you were last year. And that's what people are talking. How people speak about the Bears, like, oh yeah, we're not going to compete with the Lions or Green Bay Packers. Why not? Why
no, they better. I said it. I said if they miss the playoffs, Eberflus should be fired. It's a failure season.
I mean, look, at least the 76ers had a knack for winning. They had some type of, they're known for winning, or, at least being competitive. The Bears are like the Knicks at one point. They were not known for winning. The Knicks was the laughing stock of the the NBA. The Bears was the laughing stock of the NFL. And you get one player that can, obviously there's more factors than the one player, but you get the player to really be the face of a franchise and transform the franchise. And I think Caleb Williams could do the same thing with the Bears.
I'm just saying there's a lot of pressure for this kid to succeed right away, and nobody's talking about it. Everyone's sweeping on the rug. I haven't heard one thing about the Bears this entire training camp. Not a single word. I heard about all these other rookie quarterbacks. We heard about Drake May struggling. We heard about J.J. McCarthy doing well. We heard about Jaden Daniels getting leadership and getting praise from his veterans and commanders. The only thing I heard about Caleb Williams is about cleaning up after yourself in the locker room. Like, I'm not hearing nothing about the field. I'm not hearing about none of his play. I'm not hearing anything about that from the Chicago Bears practice. What's going on that I'm not hearing nothing. I'm not hearing good news or bad news from Chicago in terms of what's happening with Caleb Williams. Why not? I'm hearing every other quarterback but him. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, there have been a couple throws that have gone viral, and I'm sure the hype is going to start with Hard Knocks. Look, the expectations are very high for this team, and I'm just going to say this. The reason I don't love the Markelle Fultz comparison is because I remember when Markelle Fultz was in his one season at Washington in college, that team was bad. You could tell he wasn't a winner. I'm looking at those numbers right now. That Washington team went 9-22 overall, 2-16 in conference play, and missed the NCAA tournament by a mile. They were like USC this past year with Bronny James. And then Oklahoma with Caleb Williams, he won double-digit games his 1 year there when he took over as the starter. He didn't start that year under center. And then the last 2 years at USC, he played behind a terrible offensive line, a terrible defense, and I think the surrounding talent around him in Chicago is just so good. Like, I just don't understand. I get that he's a rookie and you don't want to make the expectations too high, but this is not Trevor Lawrence going to Jacksonville. This is not Joe Burrow going to Cincinnati. This is not Andrew Luck going to Indianapolis. The situation is really good. This is a team that won 7 games last year and improved and upgraded at offensive coordinator, running back, wide receiver 2, and tight end, and parts of the offensive line as well. This team should be playoffs or bust. I understand the Super Bowl hype is a little much for a rookie, but next year or 2 years from now, that should be the expectation because this guy in this situation is that good. And again, it's playoffs or bust as far as I'm concerned. Anything short of that would be a failure for the Bears.
All right. I think that concludes another episode of 99 Pod. It was a stacked show, clearly a lot of dialogue, a lot of content, good debates, good takes. And fellas, I'm looking forward to the next show that we do.
You already know it.
Real quick, football preseason starts tomorrow. Please enjoy the show. Like and subscribe to the channel. We'll touch base on what we like to see during that preseason the next week. We'll talk about a lot of football, basketball. There's a lot to talk about as well. And hopefully in the upcoming weeks as the season prepares itself, football season has arrived, people. Enjoy it. Let's get ready to watch some great football.
Yes, sir. Brandon Aiyuk is going to be a Steeler, it looks like. You got the Fields, Russell Wilson battle, the recap, what we talked about, the quarterback rankings and stuff like that. We got our top 5 and Edgar Belenga. I hope you enjoy your 15 minutes of fame, brother. Okay, we out of here. Peace out.